quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Burnham Lane.
Serena Williams conqueror Harmony Tan, who's been tipped to go long at Wimbledon, faces Amanda Anisimova. Okay, there we are. The other highlights, as I said, Nadal are playing, Kyrgios is playing as well today. 03456060973. Paul is in Bury St Edmunds. Are you near the Sugar Beet factory?
I was around 10 minutes ago, yeah. But I'm near Ipswich at the moment.
All right. What do you want to tell us about?
Well, it's to do with climate change, actually.
Okay.
It's not nice to speak to you.
And you?
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Bath Road, A4.
Sorry, it's the fact that the world's natural sort of filtration system has been demolished, or is being demolished.
The world filtration system?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Amazon jungle, and I'm talking about the jungles in Indonesia, which are being cut down at a rate of, they say a hectare an hour or something stupid. And that's having a massive impact on our atmosphere.
Is it?
So yeah, exactly. Along with all the
turn right onto Bath Road, A4.
The climate change denier again in future, and I'm bound to, whether it be on the airwaves or in person, or indeed online. What's the killer fact I can use that will derail their argument?
Ask if they consume processed food. If they do, then palm oil is used in the production of most processed foods across the globe.
Yeah.
And if they
continue on Bath Road for 3/4 of a mile.
Dietary habits.
Okay.
Cows produce methane.
They do. I didn't realise. I thought the cow methane came from the back end, but most of it comes from the front. Apparently, they burp.
I believe so. Yeah, no expert, but yeah, these both ends.
Listen, I've got to go because I've got to get some travel report. Thank you, Paul. Here's Lester, as in the man, not the place. Where are you, Lester?
I'm just going down by towards the Avonmouth Bridge.
All right.
Towards the West Country.
Okay, fine. So what's you be your eyes and ears on the travel front? What can you see?
Yeah, absolutely nothing here. The motorway speed, the regulation speed going down towards the Avonmouth Bridge. I did just have to see 3 police cars going back towards Bristol, but they were fighting. They were just in convoy of one another.
You see, this is the thing. They get extra, a bit like Boris publishing a speech before he makes it. The protesters have said we're going to be holding up all these motorways, so the police are pre-warned, pre-armed, and seem to have headed them off at the pass. It's like there's nothing to see here. There's no story. Thank you very much, Lester. Good luck.
Okay, Ian.
Have a good Monday.
Bye-bye.
It may get. I'm not wanting there to be traffic jams. I was just interested to know whether these protesters were actually making a difference or not. It feels like it's a little bit of a damp squib on the motorways at the moment, but
in 200 yards, at Huntercombe roundabout, take the first exit onto Huntercombe Spur heading to M4, London.
per gallon. Wow. Trucks average 8 to 10 miles per gallon. Freight is costing a fortune at the moment. Why doesn't the government offer quarterly tax rebates to key services? It seems simple to me. Thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow morning, sitting in for Steve again from 4 o'clock. Don't forget, download the Global Play.
Exit the roundabout onto Huntercombe Spur.
The Global stations coming up at 10. It's James O'Brien. But now, sitting in for Nick Ferrari at breakfast is Tom Swarbrick.
Ian, thank you very much indeed. Yes, morning all. Welcome to the show. At 7 o'clock.
Then Deputy Chief Whip resigned. A specific allegation was then made to the independent scheme and was brought to the attention directly of the Prime Minister. And that is when the process happened about removing...
Keep left at the fork.
Britain's enemies circle as cabinet anger grows at the handling of Tory sex assault allegations. Meanwhile,
if this is not addressed now, we will reach...
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
There are many, many people at the bar who do earn big salaries. They are not practicing at the criminal bar.
striking lawyers refuse to prosecute burglars in court in a row over pay, while 22,000 suspects remain on the run. Details to come. And
Ditherers need not apply. This is where the nonsense stops. This is the SAS.
a ban on nicknames in the SAS, apparently too harsh, even for the bravest of the brave. More after the news.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This
Continue on M4 for 11 miles.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, Denmark's Prime Minister says the country has been hit by a cruel attack following a shooting at a shopping centre in Copenhagen. 3 people were killed and several others injured after a gunman opened fire at the mall yesterday. A 22-year-old man has been charged with manslaughter. Hans Christian Stoltz was in the area taking his daughters to a Harry Styles concert, which was cancelled.
It's pure terror. This is awful, you know. You might wonder how a person could do this to other human beings, but it's beyond, you know, anything that's possible.
Russia claims it's now in full control of the Luhansk region in eastern Ukraine. Kiev has withdrawn its forces from the city of Lysychansk after heavy fighting. It puts Moscow a step closer to seizing the wider Donbass region, but President Zelensky has promised to retake lost territory. Labour is demanding Boris Johnson sets out what he knew about allegations of inappropriate behaviour against Chris Pincher before giving him a government job. The MP resigned as Deputy Chief Whip after being accused of drunkenly groping 2 men last week. LBC's James Goodison is in Westminster. It's alleged that Boris Johnson referred to the MP as Pincher by name, Pincher by nature, before making him Deputy Chief Whip in February. Now, Downing Street has not disputed that account, and over the weekend a stream of fresh allegations against Mr. Pincher emerged. He has denied those allegations. Plans aimed at improving the cost, choice and availability of childcare in England are being set out. The government's consulting on changing staff-to-child ratios from 1 to 4 to 1 to 5 for 2-year-olds. Charities and unions say the proposals won't help. There are now thought to be fewer pubs in England and Wales than ever before. The total number has dropped below 40,000 for the first time on record. Researchers say while many pubs battled through COVID, they're now facing soaring energy costs, inflationary pressures and tax rises. Formula One bosses say a protest at the British Grand Prix yesterday was incredibly dangerous. Climate activists ran onto the track at Silverstone, but the race had already been suspended because of a crash. 7 people have been arrested. In the city, the FTSE 100 will start the week at 71.68 after closing unchanged on Friday, and the pound buys $1.20 and €1.15. LBC weather, southern parts mostly dry with some sunny spells, some light rain or showers across northern and western parts this morning, a high of 22 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
Are you claiming tax credits? If so, this message is for you. Tax credits are ending, and the Department for Work and Pensions will be moving people across to Universal Credit by 2024. Many people who switch from tax credits to Universal Credit could be financially better off. You could take advantage of this by choosing to move to Universal Credit earlier if you think it's right for you. Why not check an independent benefits calculator to see if you could be better off on Universal Credit? Search Understanding Universal Credit to find out more. People on tax credits will be moved to Universal Credit by the end of 2024. If you choose to apply sooner, it's important to get independent advice before you do, as you won't be able to go back to tax credits. Eligibility criteria apply.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Tom Swarbrick.
Just gone 7. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the show. Tom Swarbrick and Nick Ferrari at breakfast here on LBC. Hope we find you well. Coming up,
we can confirm there has been a shooting with many casualties. We now know there were also several killed. When we arrived there, we apprehended a suspect in the immediate vicinity of Fields.
3 dead after a gunman rampages through a shopping centre in Copenhagen. A 22-year-old has been arrested and charged. We'll be live to Denmark. Plus,
we have exited the EU and we're not going back. I want to make sure that we take advantage of the opportunities and that we have a clear plan for Brexit.
The Labour leader will set out his party stall on Brexit today after months of criticism for not saying enough. We'll tell you what Starmer is going to say. And too many are. It's official. The Great British Pub is dying out.
Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast with Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
Very good morning to you. Downing Street have managed to get themselves into an almighty tangle in their response to the allegations made about the former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher. When the allegations of drunkenly groping 2 colleagues emerged,
Downing Street tried not to suspend Pincher from the party. That was never going to work. So, as he had been in 2017, Chris Pincher was suspended from the Conservative Party on Friday afternoon. Then came the questions about why Pincher was appointed by Johnson when there were multiple allegations made about him over the years, allegations denied. Downing Street have tried to maintain that the Prime Minister knew nothing about these specific allegations about Chris Pincher when he appointed him into government. That also seems to have melted in on contact with reality. The Sunday papers yesterday reporting that the Prime Minister had referred to his government colleague as Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. The Mail on Sunday reporting a source saying that during the 2019 leadership campaign, Johnson had told a meeting that he had, and I'm quoting now, the support of all the sex pests in the party. Once again, Downing Street seems unable to get their story straight, all of which meant that cabinet ministers engaging with the press yesterday had a bit of a torrid time. This was the Work and Pensions Secretary, Therese Coffey, speaking to me on Swarbrick on Sunday yesterday.
Okay, my understanding of what's just happened literally in the last few days was that the Deputy Chief Whip, the then Deputy Chief Whip resigned from the government, citing his own behaviour in terms of being very drunk and embarrassing himself and other people. I think a specific allegation was then made to the independent scheme and was brought to the attention directly of the Prime Minister, and that is when the process happened about removing the whip.
Yes, and Downing Street saying that the Prime Minister not aware of any allegations. Let me just ask you this finally. There's a source in the Mail on Sunday saying that during the 2019 leadership campaign, Boris Johnson said that he, quotes, had the support of all the sex pests in the party. Is that something that you can imagine the Prime Minister saying?
No, I have. I mean, you're the first person to raise that with me. I haven't actually read that. Look, I'm just not aware. I'm not privy to specific conversations the Prime Minister has. I'm aware that we've been told today that the PM was not aware of specific allegations, and those now are in the investigation process.
Do you think that the Prime Minister could have said something like that?
It's not words I would associate in my experiences with the Prime Minister of how he would speak, no.
Therese Coffey, the Work and Pensions Secretary, speaking to me yesterday, that sigh says, I think, quite a lot. Front page of this morning's Times, sex scandal revitalises rebel plot to topple PM. Tory rebels have said that Boris Johnson's handling of claims that a Conservative whip drunkenly groped two men had bolstered their efforts to oust him. Does it? Is this another example of Downing Street dysfunction, of Johnson jumbling his way through? Is it another lame reaction, or to your mind, does it matter not a jot? 0345 6060 973. Rob Wilson is a Telegraph columnist, former Conservative MP and Minister. Thanks for joining the programme this morning, Mr. Wilson. Do you think this is going to aid Johnson's enemies? Good morning.
Good morning, Tom. Well, it's not helpful, let's put it that way. You know, what Boris did or didn't know, only he can tell us. And there will, I'm sure, be an opportunity in the House of Commons later this week, if the opposition really want to know the details, to try and prize it out on the Prime Minister's question time, where, of course, you're on oath and you have to tell the truth. And there's already one investigation going on there at the moment about whether Boris told the truth or not, and we'll just have to see what Keir Starmer or others in the House of Commons ask him.
Clearly the culture and the actions of MPs at Westminster is very, very important. And it's worth saying again, Chris Pincher denies some of the allegations that have been made against him. But this speaks to a broader point about how the government deals with various events that come their way, and a lot of the concern amongst your former colleagues, Rob, is that every time Downing Street seems to miss the mark. Do you think that's fair?
I think there is a substantial political point in all this, and that is that the government has allowed a narrative to develop where people are immediately prepared to believe the worst about the Prime Minister, whether it's the truth or not, whether it's a tall story or not, and that cannot be a good thing for a government, any government, because people believe the worst, and that is not something that's sustainable in the long term.
Do you think whose fault is that?
Well, I think the communications that the government has with the public are very poor, because they are not outlining a long-term plan, they're not outlining the detail of their policies. They're being distracted and blown off course constantly. And again, that's down to whether people in government have the focus and the understanding of what they're doing to deliver it.
If I could put it like this, Mr. Wilson, there is only so much glitter you can sprinkle on the stuff that comes out the back end of the pony. There's only so much spinning that can happen if what you're dealing with is for want of a better phrase, the stuff that comes out the back of it. The problem is the trust in the Prime Minister, isn't it? Can anybody trust the Downing Street operation, or indeed the Prime Minister, to be telling the truth?
Well, by and large, Prime Ministers, because of the apparatus that is around them, generally have to tell the truth, because direct lies are found out very quickly. But the apparatus around the Prime Minister at the moment doesn't seem to be...
In 2 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
That was promised after the whole Partygate thing. This is meant to be the team that's better able to support him.
And I think the evidence is the team is better, but the team is still having to deal with things that have gone on in the past. I mean, no Prime Minister in recent times certainly has had someone who has been part of their core team leaking private conversations constantly against the Prime Minister. Prime Minister have many private conversations that are never meant to get to the public ears. And in Boris's case, he's had the whole of his inner thinkings and inner workings of his government opened up to the public. And that's the first time I've ever seen that happen. And that is having a very detrimental effect on how he can progress his business of government.
Rob Wilson, thank you. You're a Telegraph columnist, former Conservative MP and Minister. 7:12. Listen to that. Tim Walker, columnist at the New European. Thank you for coming on the programme, Tim. Is this the effect of what Rob has been describing as a lack of trust, really?
Well, I think, you have to be judged by the people you're put to jobs. And I think, the people around him, if they're not keeping confidences, they shouldn't, probably be given the jobs in the first place. We see the daily commentaries from Dominic Cummings, who, of course, at one point Boris Johnson was sticking by as well. He has a regrettable habit of sticking by people until, he can no longer stick by them. And we realise, really, it's not just his own character that is being called into question here, but he's not a very good judge of character. And I might add, there was a journalist I worked with at the Telegraph called Charlotte Edwards. I regard her as a very serious, very proper, very decent journalist. She made allegations against Boris Johnson himself a few years ago, fumbling under a table with her, very much against her wishes, and she was horrified. So unfortunately...
What did Mr. Johnson have to say about those allegations, Tim?
Of course, he denied them to the extent, we believe him. And the trouble is, we have heard his word on an awful lot of issues. We've heard him talking about women as totty and so forth. And, we've had stories in the past that...
In 1/4 mile, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Initially lied about and then seemed to accept reality there. So we're talking, unfortunately, about a pattern of behaviour here.
But on this specific incident, this is a man who was put back into government some years ago, and the people who wish to topple the Prime Minister...
Exit at junction 3.
Regardless of what the story is, they would try and do it every day until days run out.
Well, I think Boris Johnson's position here...
In 1/4 mile, at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the 4th exit onto the Parkway, A312.
I think this was as I understand it from the people I've talked to about this was an overriding priority. Nobody cares less personally about Chris Pitch. He may well have known he was picture by name and picture by nature, as the papers say, but he did not want the embarrassment of a third by-election defeat in such a short period of time. So he attempted to gloss over it, and we see the result. I mean, I've never been somebody who has regarded all Tories as terrible. Most Tories I know, they're perfectly decent, honourable people who, I'm talking about traditional Tory voters, who do not like just sleaze. They do not like a government that's behaving like some kind of carry-on film.
Right, Tim, good to speak to you. Thank you, Tim Walker. You're a columnist at the New European. I wonder whether it feels like we're heading back to a previous age, in the 90s, the Conservatives in the 90s, where it was, you could set your watch by the sleaze stories that would come out. David in Leeds this morning, Tom, you can pretty much set your watch by Tory scandal these days too. The culture that exists in Parliament is similar to that exists in many police forces, says Paul. So why are the government not put into special measures? An independent judge-led review needs to take place to restore public confidence. I'm not sure we need a judge to tell us that it's gone wrong. 0345 6060 973. Are these the rebels that are gearing up because that's what they would always do, or is there genuine criticism to be had by the government for how they've handled this? We'll come to your thoughts in a few moments. After the news,
It's pure terror. This is awful, you know. You might want to
Exit the roundabout onto the parkway.
beings, but it's beyond, you know, anything that's possible.
a gunman kills 3 in a shopping mall shooting in Copenhagen.
Continue on the parkway for 1 mile.
To ignore the rhetoric and instead do all we can to continue to support Ukraine with the weapons they need to win this appalling war.
More support, and in it for the long haul. Truss will give a speech later today in Switzerland pledging Britain's latest round of support for that beleaguered country. This is Tom Swarbrick in for Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. It's 7:16. News headlines now. Simon Conway.
A shooting at a shopping centre in Copenhagen has left 3 people dead. Russia claims it's now in full control of the Luhansk region in eastern Ukraine. Labour is demanding Boris Johnson sets out what he knew about allegations of inappropriate behaviour against Chris Pincher before giving him a government job. LBC weather, southern parts mostly dry with sunny spells, some light rain or showers further north, a high of 22 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. On the trains, Greater Anglia services can't run between Cheshunt and Stansted Mount Fitchett, and it's all because of the overhead wire problems, which also means that Stansted Express services can't run north of Cheshunt, and London Overground services aren't running between Hackney Downs and Cheshunt and between Hackney Downs and Enfield Town. Southeastern services are delayed by about half an hour between Faversham and Dover Priory via Canterbury East. On the Underground, there are minor delays on the Jubilee line, and on the roads on the M25, the anti-clockwise entry slip road is closed at junction 1A at the A206. That's all down to a fuel spillage, and then also on the M25, 1 lane's closed clockwise just after junction 23 at South Mims because a car has broken down.
LBC. At Pucker, we're standing up for full-on flavour with our delicious new slices, pasty and sausage rolls. Tasty, rich and full of flavour from the first bite to the very last crumb. So join us and stand up for full-on flavour. You from Pucker, bakers of the People's Pie. This is
In a quarter of a mile of Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit and stay on the parkway A312.
In Mexico feels like paradise. As more your hotel when booking with British Airways Holidays. We've carefully selected the all-inclusive TRS Coral Hotel as the place to stay in Costa.
Exit the roundabout onto the parkway. Continue on A312 for 1.5 miles.